The next chapter is him hitting absolute rock bottom. So we're going to discuss burnout, betrayal, and basically losing everything. So he was at the top of the world, and now you'll see he's about to lose everything. So even though Alex's businesses was making a lot of money, $20,000 a month in profit roughly, or even more by then, his life behind the scenes was falling apart. He was living out of a suitcase, working 16-hour days and drowning in stress. To cope, he started drinking half a bottle of whiskey every night just to feel normal. Then things got worse. A dishonest partner or business partner stole from him, their payment accounts were frozen, and the company went broke. So here's a quote from James Dyson to really extrapolate this. So there were 5,126 failures that James Dyson went through in his journey, but I learned from each one. That's why I came up with a solution. So I don't mind failure. This relates to Alex's journey through betrayal, financial ruin, and refund scams from his business partner, where he treated failures as learning opportunities. So I don't know where I heard this, but on a YouTube video, he's obviously now way more aware of business partners and people he does business with because of the thing he went through with his previous business partner where he essentially lost everything. So he's saying we treated failures as learning opportunities to pivot his broken model. Much like Dyson's persistence, prototypes led to innovation despite repeated setbacks. So he went from running a thriving business to having just $1,000 left and no way to finish his projects. So even with Elon Musk, right? He sold PayPal for $180 million in 2022, invested nearly all of it into SpaceX and Tesla, which were basically going down, and all the people from finance and everything were saying, oh, this is doomed to fail. He even slept on factory floors, eating cold food for months. And Alex Hormozi also did that. There was like I think this thumbnail where he was, or photo, where he was literally sleeping on the gym floor. So this is almost exactly like Elon, but Elon was just playing with bigger stakes. PayPal, $180 million, way more than Alex at the time, but same premise. And he nearly went bankrupt in 2008. So you'll see there, from 2002 to 2008, so that's basically 6 years of struggling with this business, Elon Musk. So that also shows an extreme amount of resilience and all those qualities, like every single one of them. And with just weeks of cash left with his business. So just as Alex hit rock bottom with $1,000 left, and rebuilt his gym businesses from his in-laws' spare room. So it's basically Layla's parents' like a spare bedroom. So broken and ashamed, after he's got $1,000 left, Alex and Layla moved into her parents' spare bedroom. He felt like he failed everyone, especially her. At his lowest point, he told her, I think you should leave me, I'm a sinking ship, but Layla refused. She looked at him and said, I would sleep under a bridge if it came to that. That one sentence changed everything. A belief gave him hope again, and sometimes you start believing in yourself only because someone else believes in you first, he later said. So, perfect quote to tie that in. The fastest way to go from broke to rich is to go from broke to desperate. So, he was definitely pretty desperate in this sense. Sleeping in his, girlfriend's parents' spare bedroom after being the success story, right? Like, this is actually really bad. If you really think about it, like, you're the top of your industry, from 22 to 25, getting all the success, you are the hot shot, like top of your league, and then basically losing everything. So I believe that's where Alex Hormozi's ego death came in, I'm pretty sure. Like where he's got his views now of nothing really matters and meaning and stuff like that. I think that's where it originated from. So with nothing left to lose, they started over. Using a risky payment processor, they fought to keep their business alive and pulled off a gym launch that made $330,000 in a single month. But soon, some more failures, refund requests flooded in. Gym owners were scamming him, telling members to get refunds so they could pocket the money themselves. It crushed him. The more I sold, the more refunds came in, he said. At his breaking point, Alex realized the business model was broken. So, quote to tie that in, where he mentioned that, or he basically found out the business model was broken. The only reason he found that out is by doing it, right? And failing and just essentially putting one foot forward in front of the other. He said every single problem I've ever had in business was solved by building a better offer. So in that sense, the offer was broken. Instead of quitting, he and Layla made a new choice to let go of what failed and start fresh.
I think what's very prevalent here, but also looking at different founders, right? Like James Dyson is the first person that comes to mind right now. He made 5,100 and something prototypes, right? Just like Alex here, you realize that this thing was broken, or his payment processor got stuffed, or he got scammed by his other business partner, right? Essentially, business works as follows, or at least that's what I've learned through these founders and through my own experiences. There's a certain, like you got a certain goal, your current situation, and then you got a lot of problems, problems you need to solve on your way there. And some problems only reveal themselves in the journey, right? Most problems. And usually what happens is, as soon as you solve one problem, a new one arises you to solve, right? That's business. And I think the best way to almost like 100% guarantee success is just to never stop, going. And if you can stay into one business model, there will be a point where you have solved most of the problems, or the biggest ones, right? That withholds you from being profitable. And so in Dyson's case, what's his name?
James Dyson.
Yeah, it's a James Dyson. So in James's case, right, he had to make 5,100 prototypes before he created the vacuum that doesn't have a bag, right? That's like the main thing. And so in his case, that's probably how long it took, right? That's the price of the dream he prayed for. And with Alex, he had to go through all these things. Even with James, he also got, so he didn't have a patent, a patent or whatever on his previous product that he was making, and it was linked to the business. And so when he lost the business, he lost like the prototype he was working on as well for 5 years. And so in that situation, he also learned that your business partner, patents, like the actual business side of like the document side is extremely important. And he wouldn't have learned that if he didn't go through it. So in the moment, it feels like hell, but looking back on it, you can connect the dots, like Steve Jobs said.
And also, I think you mentioned the only way to really quit or to guarantee success is to not quit. And I think another one is to have the right expectations. People think there are going to be no problems. There's guaranteed problems. So set the expectations straight. And Elon said, you get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. So if you solve less valuable problems, like for example, maybe flipping burgers, you're not going to be paid as much because it's not as valuable of a problem. But making the human consciousness multi-planetary species is a massive problem. That's why it's the richest person in the world. And the thing about setting expectations is the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Where you get those that you talk about a lot. Essentially uninformed optimism, then informed pessimism. Then you realize all those problems. When you're in the beginning, this is the thing about setting expectations. You have uninformed optimism. You're not aware of all the problems that are going to be there. And then number 2 is informed pessimism. Now you're aware of the problems. And then crisis of meaning, you're like, shit, this is way harder than I thought. And then the keep going comes in, where you're now informed optimistic, and then you achieve the goal. So
I mean, that's good.
Having the right expectations and not quitting is 99% way to guarantee success.
And that's why, if you look at, all the greatest founders, they were all obsessed with their craft, right? You can call it passion or whatever, and they were extremely focused. And that is what will lead to not giving up. Because if you have the right expectations, or if you just spend time in the market for long enough, you will find a way to do the thing better than what you're doing it right now, and that will lead to success. So people that are obsessed, just they will make it happen because they're just not going to give up, and that's, I think, majority of it, right? So pivot to a winning model, licensing, gym launch. So this is back to Alex's backstory, right? So with their business collapsing, Alex and Layla had to start over. Layla had a small online fitness program called Queen Transformation that made a few $1,000s a month. So this was back as soon as these things fell apart, right? It was simple, digital, and profitable. Out of desperation, they shut down their old operations and went all in on this program. Within 2 weeks, it was making $2,000 a day, enough to survive and clear debt. So around $60,000 a month. For the first time in years.
That's $2,000 a day.
Yeah, so $6,000 a month.
Oh yeah, I thought you said rand.
For the first time in years, Alex saw a light at the end of the tunnel. That's pretty profound, right? I think I'm going to come back to a James Dyson quote again. But Alex saw a light at the end of the Alex, for the first time in years, Alex saw a light at the end of the tunnel. For the first time in years, he saw some hope, right? So that means he was operating out of a place of, whether that be confusion, fear, doubt, whatever, right? He's in a situation right now where, wait, let's first do this. You can't escape pain, only decide which kind is worth enduring, right? So the previous quote that I just read emphasizes the fact that he was suffering through all of that, right? And you can't escape suffering in this life. You can only decide which suffering you're willing to endure and if it's worth enduring, right? Are you going to suffer to get a six-pack, or you're going to suffer while being fat, right? Both of them are terrible to get to a large degree, but the one just has a better outcome. So for the first time in years, Alex was taking action despite everything not working out. Staying with his girlfriend's parents, right? Father not, he's not on speaking terms with his father. All these previous businesses failed. And he came out of a DUI, right? Driving under influence. So he was on a fairly low point in his life. Nothing was working, and only now he saw some light at the end of the tunnel. Think about that, right? Maybe all the suffering is what it takes to be great, right? The price of the dream that he prayed for. So Steve Jobs said, "I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance."
And this goes completely contrary to the school system, right? Where it's all about IQ and where they literally punish you if you make a mistake. But in business, you are actively looking for failures and mistakes. And failure is part of the journey. If you don't want failure, you don't want success.
Yeah.
So it's pure perseverance. So the school system kind of teaches you that IQ and how well you did at school, but it doesn't really teach perseverance in school.